What's up? Wow, I'm Jeremy. It's a Go Home show. I recorded a video earlier this week and ran out of storage on my phone and debated about re-recording or just finding a place to cut it. And now I'm kind of glad that I didn't actually post it. This is going to be the 4th episode. Huge change in the TLC pay-per-view for Sunday, which oddly enough there's very little TLC on this. There's one TLC match which took perhaps the biggest change, or what I don't even know if you can say it's the biggest change. But if you haven't heard, Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt have both been taken off the card due to illness. I've heard viral meningitis. I've heard the mumps. Both of those sound disgusting. And at least in the case of the mumps, that's something that both Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns should have been vaccinated for. So I don't know what to believe. I don't know if anybody actually knows. Of course, there's HIPAA laws in place when you start talking about people's actual illnesses. So it's tough. But apparently this stuff's been wreaking havoc on the whole roster. That's apparently Bo's been sick too, and that's what Bo Dallas, almost called him Bo Wyatt. Apparently he's been sick too, and that's why he hasn't been on the air, and why he's not involved in this TLC match. The only TLC match on the card is what was a 5-on-3 between the Shield, and then they were going to face The Miz, Braun Strowman, The Bar, and Kane, randomly enough. And then today we find out that Roman Reigns is sick and isn't going to be able to compete, so he's out, and Kurt Angle's replacing him. And the first reaction is, man, how are they going to get? I mean, how does that make sense? But it makes perfect sense. One, The Miz has been talking crap to Kurt Angle and just really being a pain in the butt about this whole match. And, you know, every time Dean Ambrose opens his mouth, The Miz tries to get a fifth person, or another person in the match. And Kurt's been clearly exasperated with that whole process. So that makes sense. Also, you know, Kurt Angle's a competitor. He's the general manager. He's going to want this show to be as good as possible. And so it makes sense that if on Friday, before a show on Sunday, that a main event superstar had to step out, it would make sense that Kurt Angle would step in, especially in a situation like this where Dean and Seth can carry the load from a strategic standpoint. He doesn't, it's not like he's stepping in to face Braun Strowman by himself. It's a 5-on-3. Which is not great odds, but at least that he can tag out if the story is that he's not in the best shape. I mean, I'm sure he actually is in real life, but the story would be that he's been out of the ring, he's not in great shape, he wasn't prepared to wrestle. So anyway, I still think that American Shield, or whatever you want to call that team, I still think they probably win. But it's interesting now, because before you almost felt like you had to have the Shield win. Now I think you could have the team of 5 win, and it wouldn't hurt anybody, and it would only help, because it would make those, having Kurt Angle at his age with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins beat 5 people that are all really tough competitors in one way or the other. To have those 3 beat those 5 is I think a tough call to make. So it might make more sense to let the 5 win in kind of a way that doesn't make sure Dean and Seth don't look bad. Which, I mean, it's 5-on-3, they won't look bad. So that's what I think I would do, but I still feel like they're going to be too tempted to have the Shield guys and Angle win. So that's one change. And listen, kudos to them kudos to Angle for being willing to step in at that short notice in that kind of match. It's going to take lots of timing with people he's never worked with. I mean, I'm sure he worked with Kane, obviously, but it's been a while. He's never worked with the Shield guys that I know of. I wouldn't think his path would have crossed with Seth Rollins at any point. He's never worked with Braun Strowman. Maybe The Miz at some point. I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I can't remember when Kurt Angle left WWE. So that's one that I'm just drawing a blank on whether their paths crossed. But I know he hasn't really worked with Sheamus, and he hasn't really worked with Cesaro for sure. So that's just kind of an interesting matchup for him to step in on. So kudos to him for being willing to do that. And that should be an interesting match. The other change to the card is, of course, Bray Wyatt is gone. He was one of the first ones we knew was not well, and that's why he hadn't been in the arena. He's been doing all of his work for this feud via video, which has been fine. I didn't even notice they hadn't been there until the story started breaking that he was sick. And so I mean, he's done a good job of staying relevant in that feud without actually being there. So kudos to him for that. But he's not going to fight. Instead, it's going to be AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. But I don't really know how they book it there, and I don't even know that they have to book it, because they've been upfront at least about the fact that Roman and Bray are sick. We don't know exactly what's wrong with them, but we know that they are sick. So the WWE could just say, hey, Kurt Angle called Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan and said, hey, we're in a bad spot. We need somebody who can step in against Finn Balor, and AJ stepped up. I mean, that's AJ was ticked. He lost to Baron Corbin, and he's in a bad mood. So he wants to fight somebody, and he agreed to come over and fight Finn Balor. It's weird because it's face versus face, but it's a match that people want to see. And again, kudos to the WWE for having this situation where it's not ideal, and they didn't handcuff themselves to things that just necessarily made sense. They didn't try to shoehorn somebody in. This would have been, now, an alternate solution that I actually just thought of that might have been better for Raw overall might have been to have Kurt Angle on Sunday, and maybe this is still going to happen, but have Kurt Angle on Sunday say, Miz, I'm stepping into this match, but it's going to be on 3-on-4 because you're going to defend your Intercontinental Championship against Finn Balor. That might have been the route I would have gone, but they gave us what is probably a better match. Well, I don't know if it'd be a better match because I'm not high on Finn, but what'll be a more iconic, fans are going to be excited match in AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. And so maybe they just go straight forward with it and just kind of almost tell it like it probably happened. Is that they just went and said, look, we need somebody who can step into this match that's can be as high profile as we want to make it, and you got to fight Finn Balor on Sunday, and that's just the way it is. And AJ stepped up, which I imagine is close to what happened. They probably had a short list of superstars that they wanted. Kevin Owens, which Kevin Owens was out on personal issues from lots of things going on. Kevin Owens is apparently out for personal issues from the South America tour. So there was some speculation that that he was sick as well, but maybe not. And then I was just wondering, well, maybe they were initially trying to get him to come home to wrestle Finn, and it just didn't work out. I don't know what is going on. There's lots. Maybe it's all sort of related. Maybe KO is sick. Maybe it's not the same illness the other guys have. It just happens to be that he's sick as well. I don't know. And Nia Jax is apparently, her time off isn't like this big angry thing, according to Dave Meltzer. It's just she needed a few days off. She was tired. She wasn't really factoring into the major storylines now, so they gave her some time off, which would make sense because Nia, people kind of lump her into the group with the other women. She's not like most girls. I don't know if you've heard that. The rest of them, even Alexa Bliss, who some would consider Alexa Nia's kind of contemporary. Alexa's been in the WWE for 4 years now, in the system. She had her, well, probably more than that, but she had her main roster, or her NXT debut in 2013. So she's been on some sort of WWE television for 4 years. Nia, 2 years. She signed in 2014, had her first match on some sort of programming in 2015, and then made her main roster debut in 2016. So she hasn't been in this business very long. She's never been outside the WWE in this business. So it would make sense that she might be burnt out and just need a few days. And the WWE did something logical for once and said, you know what? We have 2 women's matches lined up for this pay-per-view. Emma versus Asuka and Alexa Bliss versus Mickie James. Neither one of them involve you, so why don't you take a few days? That makes sense. Maybe it's not the truth. That's the story that's out now. But there's just been a lot of this, like Neville apparently walked out, and now it's Enzo trying to capture his title from Kalisto on Sunday. I like to think Kalisto wins that, but who knows? It's just a weird weekend of wrestling. Weird stuff. And the thing about it is, with it being wrestling and with them trying to balance real life HIPAA laws and the storyline, we may never know exactly what's going down. We may never know exactly what was wrong with Bray Wyatt, what was wrong with Roman Reigns, why KO had to leave South America, where Nia Jax went. We may never know any of that. So that's what's crazy about it. Real quick, went to an NXT live event here in Macon last night. It's the same one that you Aiken guys and North Charleston guys are going to get. Well, it's the same tour. Maybe you'll get a different show. Great show. And NXT, and this is something WWE, the main roster, does very well now, too. There was a time where, I mean, some of you guys, especially that are a little bit older, like myself, we're not old, but like there's some people in the group that are like 24. So I don't know if they would necessarily remember this. Maybe they would. But there was a time where WWE and WCW house shows, you'd get like one decent match, and then the rest of the card would suck. Well, both WWE and NXT do a good job now of giving you a really good show. Last night, most of the people you would expect to see on a pay-per-view or on a takeover were there. We had Drew McIntyre, we had No Way Jose, we had Johnny Gargano, we had Sanity, we had the Undisputed Era, all 3 of them. We had, so we saw the NXT champion, we saw the tag team champions. Only thing we didn't see, well, the women's title is I guess vacant. We didn't see Ember Moon. We did see Nikki Cross. She was in action. It was a really good card all around. So kudos to them. If you guys that are going to see this show, if you get anything similar than what we got, you're in luck. So anyway, that's all for the go home show, and hopefully we'll figure some more stuff out by Sunday. See you next time.